Hey everybody, I'm Pete Burak, and welcome to another episode of Cathlist. Today we're talking about Rita of Cascia. Lovely Rita. Did you know that her in-laws were involved in a vicious family feud called V for Vendetta? I mean La Vendetta. Her husband's family, the Mancinis, and their neighbors, the Chicchi family, have been fighting for years, and by the time Rita came around, it had become violent. But more on that later. That's just one of the 7 things about Saint Rita we'll be talking about today. Stick around. Saint Rita was born Margherita Lotti in 1381 in the city of Roccaporena in Cascia, Italy. Roccaporena. Her parents were wealthy people and were members of the Conciliatori de Cristo, Peacemakers of Christ, a group dedicated to serving through charitable works. The day after her baptism as an infant, she was swarmed by white bees, which flew in and out of her mouth without hurting her. That sounds terrifying. Not the bees! But rather than being alarmed, as I would be, her family took it as a sign from God's devotion to their daughter, as normal people do. She wanted to be a nun from a young age, but her parents arranged a marriage despite her pleas, a common and unfortunate practice at the time, to Paolo Mancini, a rich, angry, and immoral man. She was only 12 years old when they were married. Paolo was a terrible person, just an awful, awful guy, and I truly hope Rita's parents didn't know that when they married her off. She endured his abuse and unfaithfulness for years, and she remained patient, humble, and kind through it all. The story goes that through her patience and kindness, she eventually converted Paolo into a much better man. He even renounced the aforementioned feud. Unfortunately, his enemies did not, and he was violently stabbed to death by Guido Chicchi, one of them. I mean, it's like, no, I'm not feuding anymore. It's like, yes, we are. It's usually like when you renounce a feud, you got to make sure both parties are on that, otherwise it can lead to stabbing. At her husband's funeral, Rita publicly forgave his attackers. Rita and Paolo had 2 sons, Giovanni Antonio and Paolo Maria. Great Italian names. They were both raised in the Christian faith, but were eventually sucked into the violence like their father, under the very negative influence of his brother, Bernardo. He convinced them to seek revenge for their father's murder. Rita tried to persuade them from retaliating, but to no avail. They were determined. But before they could carry out their plan, however, they both died of dysentery. Rita took this as an answer to her prayer, that they died a natural death before they could commit a mortal sin, punishable by eternity in hell. Let's think about that for a second. She was happy. She was relieved that they died before they could commit a mortal sin. Makes sense. But dysentery, really? With her family dead, Rita returned to her dream of joining religious life. She wanted to enter the monastery of St. Mary Magdalene in Cascia, but was turned away by the superiors. Though they acknowledged her exceptional piety, they feared an association with the scandal of her husband's death and feud. It was a messy business. But she was a stubborn lady, though, and wouldn't give up her wish. They finally accepted, with the condition that before she entered the convent, she would make peace between the Mancinis and the Sharks. Just kidding, the Chicchis. She implored her patron saints for help: John the Baptist, Augustine of Hippo, Nicholas of Tolentino. Some stories involved the bubonic plague, which infected Bernardo Mancini and encouraged him to give up his bloodlust. Nothing like some good old black plague to bring you back to your senses. Finally, at the age of 36, she was permitted entry into the monastery. She stayed there until she died of tuberculosis on May 22nd, 1457. Did you know that Saint Rita had part of the stigmata? The stigmata is a miraculous phenomenon where some people are given body marks, sores, sensations, or wounds corresponding to the wounds Christ endured during his passion. Some people have all of them, and some have only one. Some people have only 2. Some people don't have any visible marks at all, but still feel the pain. We'll do a whole video on this sometime. When Rita was 60 years old, she was meditating before an image of Christ when a small wound appeared on her forehead, as though she had been pierced by one of the thorns from Jesus' crown. And finally, did you know she is honored as the patron saint of the impossible or lost causes, abused wives, widows, infertility, and parenthood? And that's all the time we have for now, folks. As always, there are outtakes at the end of the video, so stick around for those too. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. God bless. But were eventually sucked into the violence like their parents. I mean, their dad. Their papa. Papa Frita. Popo Gijo.
Center your butt a little bit. There you go.
I've never heard anyone say that to me before. Pete, center your butt. It is now centered.